My favorite AniTuber Digibro just released a video about Shinsekai Yori and why he thinks it's worse than Sword Art Online. And I disagree. If anything, I think it's at about the same level as Sword Art Online, definitely not ranked anywhere near the Astra score. I mean, at least I can get past episode 2 of Shinsekai Yori. I couldn't even hate watch the Astra score. But I do agree with him that Shinsekai Yori is not worth an 8.5 on Mal, though obviously for different reasons from him. For one, I do agree with Digibro. There's nothing special about Saki. They keep saying that she's strong and that she has this sort of inner strength that makes her able to weather such terribleness in her life, but they don't show it at all. They keep telling us that she has this special power above others, and yet she's rarely the one to pick herself up. There are only 2 moments I can think of where she was being especially strong. First, when she was learning about the truths about her reality, and then second in the final arc where she had to watch her comrade be killed by a ragworm as he tried to save her. It was real strength to see her break down, give herself a moment to take in what she'd just seen, and then stand back up and continue looking for the anthrax. And again, these are the only 2 moments that I ever saw her be strong. Hell, it was actually Satoru who better fit this bill of being stronger than others in my mind. Oftentimes Saki was always crumbling out of physical and emotional weakness, and Satoru always had to be the one to say, hey, we have to keep going. Even though at times it was obvious that he was being really messed up by what was happening too, he was the one who was able to compartmentalize and be like, okay, this is all really screwy, but we can think about that later. Right now, let's just live. Yeah, Saki was the one to have the revelation that the ogre child possibly might not actually be an ogre at all, which I don't think was as obvious as Digibro said, but that's really as special as Saki gets. Otherwise, I'm rather baffled as to what others see in her that, again, isn't there in Satoru. I also can't understand how anyone could have trusted Squealer. For one, in the dub, the voice that they give him makes him obviously untrustworthy. He sounds like he's gonna stab you in the back the moment you turn around. And then even if you aren't watching the dub, you're watching the sub, the way he uses his words and acts around them makes it really obvious that he doesn't have their best interest in mind. Any kindness that he's showing to them is because he knows that if he makes them angry enough, they'll just kill him. I mean, did the characters forget the time that he literally tried to give them over to the ground spiders? I can't understand how they kept trusting him after that, even so far as to tell him, hey, we think the leader of the giant hornets are gonna kill us. Can you lead us to this one place? At first I thought, well, they obviously can't be telling him the whole truth. They're just trying to mislead him for when he inevitably goes back to the leader of the giant hornets, so then they look in the wrong place, and they'll have taken off in the opposite direction or something. But no. They told him exactly what they intended to do. And then even after seeing what he and the other monster rats had done to their queens and their society, how could they have not been put on high alert? Or at the very least, report this to the ethics committee? Maybe it's just me because I didn't grow up in that environment, but attempting to replicate ancient civilizations that the adults at least know failed, and hence why their society now exists as one of peace and love and all that stuff, I'd be rather concerned about that. I'd especially be concerned about where did they get the information to recreate ancient societies. Sure, in the end, Squealer had a point that the humans were treating other, apparently literal humans, like slaves and lesser creatures, but that to me is equivalent to Hitler saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't beat our pets. And as a disclaimer, I don't know what Mr. Mustache Ruiner's thoughts on pets were, it's just an analogy. The last and biggest thing that bothered me about the show was its entire last arc. Pretty much everything after Saki turned 26 was really not good. For one, off-screen, she and Satoru had a fight that caused them to stop talking, but it's okay because it gets resolved on-screen even though we have no stakes in it. We're just confused as to why things are so awkward between them, even though it was made pretty obvious the last time we saw them that they're gonna end up together. But not just that, I found the entire battle and war thing rather boring. But even bigger for me is that the last arc gets away from what I personally found interesting about the show. The thing that actually made me kinda interested in the episode-long info dumps. It was how Saki related to them and what she was going to do with this newfound information. What I saw Saki's journey as up until this point was she started out trusting in the system around her, but having her doubts. But even still, we can trust the adults. They're the authority in life. But then after the summer camp, she realizes that The world is much more dangerous and out to get her and her friends in particular. But then later when she talks to the ethics committee leader, she starts to learn why things are the way they are, the reason why kids go missing, and the fear that keeps her society running. And what I thought they were going to do, and what they did a little bit in the last arc, was then have Saki have to weigh knowing why things are the way they are, but then also remembering what growing up in such an environment did to her and her friends. Sure, she mostly forgot about the girl who was in her group early on, and she could no longer remember Shun's face or name. The ghosts of them were still there in her heart, as were what had happened to Maria and Momoru. Why they felt they had to leave the place that they'd known all their lives. But no, instead they dropped that to focus on the monster rats and how we're not so different from you, and how we're supposed to have the feels for watching the town and almost everyone in it get destroyed. This very much goes along with my interest in Peter Pan and the movie Hook. Even though our societies are vastly different, what I thought Shinsekai Yori was building up to was a representation of growing up. At some point you enter the supposedly all-knowing and all-scary adult world, and you have to weigh becoming a cog in the machine, or recalling your past self and try to alter things so no one has to experience what you did. But apparently Shinsekai Yori wasn't terribly interested in that. Apparently people really liked the last arc and found everything else boring, so maybe if they didn't have the whole invasion, the show wouldn't be ranked as high, but I think I would have liked it more. And of course this isn't to say that if you like Shinsekai Yori you're bad or you have bad opinions necessarily. It's just what I wanted to get out of the show and what I thought they were building up to. Instead, what I got was far less interesting and even more poorly constructed than what I thought I was getting. And that's not to say that everything before the last arc was perfect. Hell, even that was rather flawed. The entire show had an issue of introducing things and then just forgetting about it once the plot didn't require it, i.e. Satoru not really feeling like himself after his powers were released. I really felt that Shinsekai Yori had so much potential, but in the end, it turned out rather disappointing. Again, I don't think it's a 1 out of 10. Hell, I think I'd even place it above Black Butler, which I will discuss at some point. I think it has just as much potential as Sword Art Online. It just needs to be put into more capable hands. And not my hands, I am just a critic analyst, I'm not a fiction writer. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and if you want to talk to me about just about anything, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. You can find me at NotAVampyre. Thank you very much again, and until next time.